We're here with Rabbi Avraham Shmuel Levine. This is the eighth part of an interview for the Meaningful Interviews program. And we'll talk now about your work at the UN and the Jewish press, and we'll go from there, please.
When I started working as a historian, this was right when I came out of the yeshiva. I wasn't shaykhs to rule matters b'chlal.
You were all completely immersed in Torah.
Right. And then I noticed, and it was mainly when I was in the Agudas Shabbat that I noticed the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. And I saw how an article in a newspaper can change the influence it has on even Talmidei Chachamim.
Torah scholars.
Yeah. They would be afraid that somebody would write against them, or what they would, or expose them, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw the tremendous influence that a newspaper article has on people. The pen is mightier than the sword. So I decided that I'll also become a pen. And I took some private courses in journalism.
I didn't know.
Yeah. And
because you didn't go to high school.
right. And I started writing in the Jewish press from time to time. I would bring stuff from Agudas Shabbat to the Jewish press.
Right.
My class always wanted to speak and learning. He liked to speak and learning.
Oh.
And he was very interested in the Torah world and the rabbinic world. And he liked me, and he wanted I should write in the Jewish press. So he said, so at first I started writing stam articles, but then he said that he needs somebody. I said to him, maybe the UN, there's stuff going on in the UN when they get to Israel. So he said, Avraham. So I went to the UN and I brought my credentials from the Jewish press, and I got a pass, and I was there.
It works so easy. Because the Jewish press wasn't the Wall Street Journal. Really?
Yeah. And I told him it was the largest paper in the Jewish community. So I was there.
What was your job there?
I was there, and I saw what all the Seigneur Yisrael spoke against Israel.
Right.
And I'll give you an example.
So you were a correspondent.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I was there when Begin bombed the Iraqi reactor in 1981.
Yeah.
Okay. Saudi Arabia, the guy, Israel's a cancer in the region, and
you heard it all.
Yeah. And then another thing I want to tell you about this, I think it's important you should know. When I came there, I was with my hat, my jacket, my beard, and that.
Yeah.
And I came there, and that's not the way everybody looked, So I started feeling sort of inferior,
right.
and sort of like with my whole, I wouldn't chas v'shalom touch my beard because of that.
Right.
But I felt uncomfortable.
Right.
Being about.
Right.
I was never, it was strange to me. It was
Yeah.
the first time coming up to this.
New environment.
Yeah. But then, one time I saw the representative of African countries coming in, the way they were dressed. Wow. I said to myself, if they can go like this comfortably, I can go like this. And then from that day on,
you felt comfortable.
I felt very comfortable, even more than them.
Right. So when you heard this,
I want to tell you this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say names, but I saw it there also, and this I think this strength to give you that when you feel uncomfortable and nevertheless remain firm by your convictions, I think only Chassidus gives you. Because I noticed there, I'm not going to mention a name, who was called Arav. He also came to sit in the press section and to follow it. He was there without a yarmulke.
Wow.
Everybody was going without a yarmulke. Now, I didn't go with my hat all the time, but I went with a yarmulke. I
Right.
took out my yarmulke. And I saw that when he looked at me and he saw that I was with a yarmulke, he was sort of like uneasy.
Right, you got embarrassed.
And I didn't want to Hashem him, so I didn't even...
Didn't
I
talk,
I
didn't
talk to
approach him.
As though I don't see him.
Right,
You know.
right.
But, okay, so I was there. So I was there during the bombing of the nuclear reactor.
1981.
Yes. That week, I reported in the Jewish press. It was a big, a full page with quotes of what this guy said, what this guy said, what this guy said. And it made a big impact in the paper. The front page was, look on page so-and-so, and you'll see. That Shabbos, I was 770, now I'm 770, and Jacobson, the editor of the Allgemeine Journal, walks over to me and he says, I saw your report. You probably got $300 for it, right? So I said, he didn't pay me yet. But then he said, a thing like this, you should get at least $300 or $500. So
So no, you were paid by
I was
before, no, you weren't on salary from
right. At that time, it was paid by
each article.
Right. So I didn't get paid yet, but then I started thinking to myself, started getting chalamis, I started dreaming.
I can make $500.
Hey, I'm going to get $500 for here, you know. I didn't think less than $300, and I was really,
Excited.
And then he comes, he pays me, he sends me in the mail.
Rabbi Class.
A check of $25.
Oh, man.
Oh, you have no idea what that did to me. So that week I wrote into the Rebbe about something.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that, that I don't feel that.
Right, you feel like you were not respected.
Yeah. He says.
Felt humiliated.
Yeah. He says, Yamshich.
The second time.
He said, Yamshich.
Continue.
Yeah, and then I came to Israel, and then at a certain point they needed an editor here in Israel.
Which paper?
Jewish Press.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then I got a call from class that he wants me, and then he gave me much more. Much more.
A salary?
Salary, a gesunte salary.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Yeah. So.
So tell me, you had a strong relationship with the Gershon Jacobson?
You could say yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I remember in 1975, Gershon made a headline.
With Satmar.
No, that was the Bazunder Meiser. He made a headline with Dr. Rafo, the Mavdal minister.
Yeah. Forget his first name.
Yeah, I forgot his first name.
Dr. Rafo, yeah.
Yeah. He was in America at that time. This was during the Mihudi issue that the Rebbe was demanding Mavdal should come out of the government. All the time, the Rebbe pounded always to come out of the government. And he was there for a certain, I think, to raise funds for the Mavdal or for Mizrahi. And Gershon Ber was there too, and he overheard him saying, Rafo was speaking to somebody else, he said, Wir haben gekämpft gegen den Bechofetz Chaim, und wir wollen kämpfen gegen den
Wow.
We wage war, to say,
Against the
Bechofetz Chaim.
In which matter? In which
Mizrahi matters.
Mizrahi matters.
Yeah. And we'll wage war against the voucher, and it made a big, he splashed it. He splashed the front page. And immediately the Rebbe wanted to know where the Chofetz Chaim's Talmidim, that was Cholim from Chofetz Chaim.
Right, and they didn't speak up.
Yeah, and they wanted to, and they demanded from the Gudu Sabran to come out against the Rafael with a condemnation, something like that. But before doing that, they have to know exactly, before dying Paskins, you have to hear
His argument, his position.
They had to call, they heard his position. and they called Jacobson, not at the same time, to call Gershon to hear his position. So I remember Gershon came, and we sat down, and I took notes at that time. He said what he said, he said what he said. I don't remember what happened at the end.
Was he an intelligent, superb writer, editor? Gershon, what
Gershon
type?
was a journalist par excellence. What do you mean?
Yeah?
Oh yeah, Gershon Ben Jacobson. Wow, Mashahu, as they say here.
Really?
He was really. He's the real McCoy, the real stuff.
You mean top level?
Yes.
He can match himself with any correspondent.
Yes. He knew how to get scoops. He knew exactly where to pull the plug or press the plug.
Right.
Press the
To
button.
dig in.
Yeah, he knew exactly what to answer this, and he was good. He was good. He was the Rebbe's man.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people know it, but a lot of stuff that the Rebbe used to speak about the things he got from Gershon's reports. Actually, I'll tell you something. There was one time the Rebbe was Farbengit, and he mentioned something. He was speaking about Shleimus Haaretz, and I knew that this was a report that he got from me in the United Nations. That was one time United Nations, the Agudas Yisrael, Shashera and all that, made a special event in the United Nations, and the guest speaker was the Egyptian ambassador to the UN. And the Egyptian in Egypt, this was the Camp David, of course, during that time, which the Rebbe was said as Avraham Davis. And here, Orthodox organization invites an Egyptian representative. And I was invited there too. And I was sitting there with all the modern Orthodox rabbis. I was sitting at a certain table. And when this guy walked in, this ambassador, everybody stood up. It was covered. And I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do that. Of course, Egypt is now going to cause such a calamity for Israel, and you're getting up for him. The people, the 4 or 5 Rabbanim that were sitting with me, saw that I didn't get up. They didn't get up either.
Wow.
Or else they would have gotten up too.
Right.
So we were the only people there. So I wrote this into the Rebbe afterwards. And then the Rebbe, that's Farbengit, following Farbengit, said, schämt sich nicht, stellt sich auf ad kdei kach.
So you're saying based on your report?
So I'm saying that, Gershon had much more reports than I did.
Right.
And I know, I'm sure that
But since you mentioned...
Gershon had a very close rapport with the Rebbe, a very close rapport with the Rebbe. And the Rebbe would speak to him things that he wouldn't speak with others. And Gershon was a very, very special person. I loved him very much.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Since you mentioned the Camp David Accords, that was with Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's 30, 40 years later, and there's been peace with Egypt.
That's peace. That's peace.
Have we had any wars with Egypt?
Okay, wait. What, did you hear what? Don't you read the papers? How they're mobilizing themselves there? Against who are they mobilizing? You know what's going on over there with the tunnels that they're doing? And all this, I don't
The
know.
Rafah crossing, right? It's
Huh?
over the Rafah crossing.
It's, around there and other areas. And Bechlal, the Rebbe said right away, after the Camp David Accords were signed, the Sifra said the ink of the Camp David Accords is not even dry, and already they let in terrorists. At that time, there were terrorist attacks.
Mm-hmm.
They did that. So this is all klapperchutz that I'm not going to go into that.
Right. Okay. So you were a correspondent for the Jewish press while you were working for the Agudas Rabbanim.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And you were able to do both things together?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, I'm sure you asked the Rebbe, but when you wrote to him about being a correspondent, did he respond? Do you remember anything?
No, I didn't write.
Uh-huh.
No.
Okay, so then let's move from there. The next thing you did was you came to Eretz Yisrael, right?
Yeah.
And you told me how you got to the Knesset.
Right.
But I think you were very involved with the Shleima Sa'aretz,
Yes.
and also I know that you had connections with the politicians and the.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that, because we don't know much about that. You had an official title, or
Well, main job was when I was in the Knesset for 6 years as an assistant to the minister. And
To
then-
Yuval.
Yeah, and we together, and like I said before, Begin wanted him in the government.
yeah,
And when Begin agreed to the demands of Yuval Ne'eman, Yuval was ready to come into the government, but there's no portfolio for him. Everything was taken up. So since he was the head scientist in Israel, the main scientist, the chief scientist in Israel, he was also nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, Yuval Ne'eman, but somehow there was somebody interfered and sabotaged it, and I know he was.
it's very insulted.
Yeah. And what an interesting thing here is when Tchiyah, after the elections, when they got 5, they started out with two members, but then when I was there, they came up with 5, and he became a minister. Okay, no, first of all, it's not okay. You asked me out, so there was no portfolio for him.
Yeah,
So since he was chief scientist, they decided to establish a new ministry, the science ministry of Israel, and they took certain for a branch that had to do with science in the energy ministry. They took that out, and in the education ministry took that out. Whatever was shaykh to science, and they made a new Messias, Misrad Hamada.
Sar
Misrad Hamada.
Hamada, the Office of
The
Science.
Yes, and he was a science minister. When he became science minister, now when I was in the Knesset, it's not like today. I very much didn't want that people should know that I'm a Lubavitcher. I didn't want people, because I knew the Rebbe was against getting involved in politics. Lubavitch is not in politics. And although I was not involved in politics as a Lubavitcher, and I was just an employee, not as a Chaver Knesset, as an employee.
Right.
So, but nevertheless, I didn't want, people knew, there were other people knew, but I didn't have a name like that. It's like in Agudas Rabbanim, I wasn't the Lubavitcher, it was Elberg who was the Lubavitcher.
Elbert.
Yeah, in other words, if Rabbanim had Tainus on Lubavitch, they would come to me, not
Right.
Elberg. So,
They would come to you.
to speak against Lubavitch,
Right.
because they knew I was not a Lubavitcher.
Right.
They thought I was not.
Right.
Okay. So the same thing here. I didn't want.
You don't want to be known as a,
Lubavitch.
right. Because Lubavitch's not in politics.
Yeah, okay. So I was with him, and he became a minister. The next day, following that day, the secretary of the party, of the
It's Misrat Hamada.
No. The secretary of the party in the Knesset called me, said to me, "Listen, Rabbi Wolf was looking for you."
Rabbi Wolf?
Yeah, and I thought it was Berke Wolf.
Yeah.
Berke, yeah. And I didn't
Berke, he was also in the
Yeah,
Knesset?
Berke was always in the Knesset. He was the Dover Chabad, so
He was the Chabad spokesman
So he was always
for
there.
Israel. Yeah.
we always just winked at each other.
Yeah.
So he was there, and then he wants to speak to me. And I was very angry that he went to them. He could have come to me. Why should this person think? He always came to me. Why should the Lubavitcher go to them?
Right.
So I called him up. I said, "What do you want?" He said, "What do you mean? What do you want?" She said that you wanted me. She said, "Not me. I didn't call you. Maybe my father." So I
Rabbi
called him.
Ephraim Wolf.
Yeah. He was like the ambassador of Lubavitch. Everything that the Rebbe wanted in Israel went through him.
Right.
So I called him up and I said, "Did you call me?" He said, "Yes." So he said, "What is it?" He says, Rabbi Chanukah wants...
The Rebbe's secretary.
Yeah, Rabbi Chanukah called me, and he says that the Rebbe wants that you should make an appointment between Professor Yuval Ne'eman and Professor Branover.
Yeah.
So, so immediately I made it was the Elul, and I made that appointment, and they sat for 45 minutes, and they spoke, whatever. And
I think the Rebbe wanted he should get the Nobel Prize
on
Branover.
It could be, I'm not sure. But
They had a 45-minute meeting.
Yeah, and then following after Yom Kippur, or from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, during Knesset recess, Yuval Ne'eman would be a guest chair in the University of Austin in Texas.
Uh-huh.
He would go there to lecture or whatever, and he was there. So he says to Branover at the end of the meeting, he says to him, I'm going to be in Austin and so, and Hoshana Rabbah, I'm flying back to Israel, and I'm going through New York. I have a flight. I have to stop there. I'll be there for 3 hours. I would like to utilize this hour or two with, why don't we do Rebbe? I never met them about Rebbe. Can you facilitate it? So Branover wrote in to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered and he says, I would love to I would want very much to meet with him, especially since his views on security are identical with mine, but this is after Lamed Ches already. This is
after 78.
That Rebbe already didn't take Yechidus only.
Right, he finished having private audiences.
So the Rebbe said, but I would love to
meet him privately.
Yeah, but but due to reasons that are not
within my ability, meaning because of his health.
I can't do it, and they gave him a bracha. That was okay. So we're going back to what were we speaking before I mentioned Branover?
No, you said that Rabbi Chadukov asked.
No, that was before that. Before I came into this. Oh, another thing I'd like to mention about Branover. To become a president of Israel, it starts off with suggestions, proposals from Chaver Knesset or from ministers. And then, even though it's sold off beforehand, but nevertheless,
officially that's the...
So I asked one of the Chaver Knesset of Akiyah, why don't you propose Branover to become president of Israel? After all, he's a prominent scientist, and he presents Soviet Jewry, and I refused again. It was a big name. He's a big name in Israel. And why don't you propose? And they proposed. Now, at the end, he didn't become. But the mere fact that he was a candidate, and they were speaking about it, that raised his stature much.
What year was this?
1983, 84.
Huh. But what about your involvement with Shleimus Haaretz? Aren't you involved with that organization?
Yeah, okay. So that was, it started with Yuval. I mean, why did I agree to join with Yuval? Because they were very strong in Shleimus Haaretz. Like the Rebbe said, his security issues are identical.
My views are identical to yours, yeah.
Yeah. So I was very, very, very involved in that. Now, what happened afterwards, 6 years later, when I stopped working in the Knesset, I started working for the Jewish press. I became the Jewish press
correspondent here in Israel.
It was here for a big time, almost 20 years, I think.
20 years?
Almost, yeah.
So that was a full-time job?
Yeah, full-time job. 15 years. 15, 20 years, yeah.
From when to when?
I don't remember. Look, I finished in 1998.
When did you finish with Yuval?
I'll tell you in a second. I became in 1998, 1999. That's when I started becoming
For the Jewish press.
Yes, and in 2004, I think.
204 you finished.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, no, from time to time I do
Right.
submit articles.
Right.
Okay. So
We're talking about Shleima Sa'aretz.
Okay. So and then after 204. After 204, also actually before that, when I was I started in 1988, and but beforehand, Rabbi Galitzky, the shliach
In Tel Aviv.
founded an organization. This was during the Rabin tenure, when he was ready to give up the Golan. So
That was in the 80s, wasn't it? It was in the 80s, no?
Yes, in the late 80s.
Late 80s.
Early 90s.
Early 90s?
Yes. So he had a hero from the Rebbe to do in Shleima Sa'aretz.
Garlitsky.
Yeah. And he started an organization called the Pikuach Nefesh Committee, because giving up land is Pikuach Nefesh.
Yes.
So he called the Pikuach Nefesh.
Risk of life.
What he did was, he brought up a psak halacha based on Shin Chov Tes, the Rebbe's
Hilchos Shabbos,
Hilchos Shabbos Shin Chov Tes.
Chapter 329 in the Code of Jewish Law.
You're not allowed to give up land.
Shal Echad.
Because it.
Afilu be'iski kasher.
Because it will, right? Because
It'll endanger.
It'll endanger. It will cause, if you give them like a foot, they'll take a finger, they'll take a hand, and at the end it'll lead to them overpowering Israel.
Right.
And he based that, his psak halacha on that, and he sent it out to all the rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael to sign. And hundreds of rabbis signed on it.
They did sign.
They did sign it. Ad hayom hazeh, from time to time, the new rabbis that signed. And you had big doidim that signed. You had Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, and you had
the Litvish Rabban
Rabbanim,
too?
Yes, the one who he made a Zilber, the tzaddik, they called him.
Yeah, the Rosh Hashanah.
Rabbi Yom Zilber, I think.
Oh, B'yam Zilber. Oh, yeah, the Oz Nidberu.
Right. Rabbi Mazuz.
He just passed away, Meir Mazuz, yeah.
Yeah, and you had the Gedolim, the lawyer of Rebbe's, and they all signed. The one was really involved, the Tzaddik Rebbe was very much for it.
The one who passed away?
Yeah.
Rabbi Friedman?
Yeah. Passed away, the one...
His younger son took over. He appointed him. He was very close to the Rebbe, I think.
No, the one that took over now is a grandson.
Oh, grandson, you're talking about the Zayda. Okay.
The Zayda, I'm talking about the Zayda.
Oh, okay.
And big problems about him.
Go ahead.
Just a moment. So he needed to expose it and to disseminate it also in English. And he asked me to do it.
That's how you came into the picture.
So, and since it's a Rebbe Indian, so I got very much involved with it. And what we do is that our goal is to publish, because the Rebbe said in a sikha, he was talking about, after years of speaking about Shleima Sa'aretz and condemning the Israeli government and criticizing them for not doing what you're supposed to, the Rebbe expressed himself one time, he said, we did so much and it doesn't help. So there's nothing else left but to publicize a psak din in Shulchan Aruch Shin Chov Tes. Since my Kesher to a psak din is okay, macht a teure, a psak von teure macht a shinui in Welt. Malke, Tura.
Right, a ruling on Torah makes a change in the world.
But it changes facts in the world.
Right.
So I guess this is the only thing that's left, is to be publicized. And this is what gave Rabbi Galitzky the push
to do this.
And what we do is that we, from time to time, we meet with all ambassadors from various countries over the world. We met with the English ambassador. We met with almost every United States ambassador, and with the French ambassador, and for the European Union ambassador. And we gave them over this the halachic ruling, and asking them to persuade their country, their respective country, not to pressure Israel on giving back land, but to encourage them to hold on to land.
So are you the individual that does you're the liaison? You talk to them directly, to the ambassadors?
I do, but it's a group.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
But no, you're not lobbying. You're not a lobbyist in the Knesset.
no.
Right.
No.
Right. One